you're dancing in the sky. And I hope you're singing in the angels' choir. And I hope them angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived.
Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here today to celebrate the life of what an amazing guy. I'm Kiley Hoefer. I am Casey's niece, Becky Kawano's daughter. And I would just like to welcome you here on behalf of our family. We should have known that 200 chairs was not enough. Wow, it's so great to see all of the love in this room. I feel like today is truly a celebration of all the love that Casey brought to each of us and that we're reciprocating that with each other. Can you feel that love in this room? Heck yeah, right? When we were preparing for today, I just felt like, wow, I am learning so much about Casey that maybe I didn't want to know, but there are so many versions of Casey. I knew Uncle Casey, and I know some of you out there called him Uncle Casey as well, but I feel like my uncle contained multitudes. He's truly the definition of someone who contained multitudes. Just look around the room at the different types of people he brought together. I'm realizing that I only knew that one version, and y'all know other versions, and some of them are X-rated, I know. So if you'll see on the tables, you'll notice that there are some yellow cards, and we know we're not going to be able to talk to every one of you. We're not going to be able to hear everybody's story, and some of you may not feel comfortable coming up here to share tonight. But we would love for you to take a minute to just jot down what version of Casey you knew. A memory, a story, just a description maybe even. There's pens on the table, there's cards, and you can either read them during our open mic time or you can drop them at the welcome table in the card basket. And those are just something that, this has been kind of a whirlwind, crazy month planning this wonderful celebration. And it'll be so nice for us to have that memory to cherish in a quiet moment in Casey's absence. So we would love to have you guys take a minute to do that for us this evening. Also on the tables, when those of you sitting along the wall, you better get on there. There's some snacks, okay? And those are some of Uncle's favorite snacks. The man never said no to a plain Lay's potato chip. So if you don't choose to eat them this evening, we hope you'll take them with you and eat them in his honor later. We would also like to request one favor. Be present today. Turn off your phones. Don't take videos and photographs during the presentation because my amazing cousin, my brother, are filming like a really beautiful version of this ceremony today, and we will be sharing that out with you. So just be present. It would be really lovely to just have your hearts and minds focused on Casey today. Yesterday was probably one of the hardest part of this experience. We laid Casey to rest in his final resting place in our Kawano family plot. Casey took his final ride in Russ's yellow Porsche that he went on many rides in. And we had an urn design. My mom worked to design an urn made out of chrome. And we made sure that puppy was polished, not a single fingerprint on it, because he would be over there spit shining that damn thing, right? So we made sure it was shiny, shiny chrome. And before we interred him in the ground, we wrapped him lovingly in a bag made of those yellow chamois claws he always had on hand for his shop. Our friend Anita made this beautiful bag that we put the urn inside of, and you're going to see that. So Carson put together a video. I couldn't believe it. He videoed it yesterday, put together this beautiful video you're about to see so that you guys can see the love and detail that went into that day.
Bitterness was right on a tip with a lamp painted like the drum. Loneliness wouldn't do no harm, nor the kiss getting good at saying goodbye, getting good at saying goodbye. Oh honey, I'm just getting good at saying goodbye, getting good at saying goodbye, getting good at saying goodbye. Heaviness, oh this hurt should wait, and now my flesh it arms with my pride. How long dress left no room to pray, so I confess.
I'm Becky, Casey's sister. First, I want to thank my family, my husband Dave, Koji, Abby, and Elliot, Kiley and Zach, Russ and Karen, Carson, and Russ's daughter Lauren and husband brought a new addition into our family, a baby boy. As Casey passed away that morning, Lauren and Duskin had their baby boy. So my vision is they were doing this high vibe as they're transitioning and passing each other, saying, go for broke, do it the Kawano way. Casey was more than just a brother to me. He was also my rock. So today I stand before you to do the most difficult task, which is to talk about my brother in the past tense. But how could I not stand before you and honor my brother? To give you a glimpse of who he was to me is the easiest task. Casey and I are 1 year and 3 days apart. Being so close in age, we were like twins. We experienced so many things together, good and bad. At a very young age, tragedy changed our family with the passing of our older brother Ricky and our dad all within 1 year. Our cousins, aunts, and uncles surrounded us with love and support. In 1991, our mother passed away. Many of you know how hard it is to lose the person that actually brought you into this world. In our world, Mom nurtured, sacrificed, supported, and loved us like no other mother could. All of these losses, Casey stepped into the role of my protector. With every passing year, we became closer and closer and always had each other's back. Casey was the one guy I could always, and I mean always, count on. Casey could be stubborn and tell things like he saw them, but he was also very loving and a caring guy. Excuse me. He also has a great sense of humor and loved to talk with people. At family and social events, I would watch as Casey engaged with each person, giving them undivided attention as he listened and shared stories. He made people laugh and put everyone at ease. He would draw people in with his charisma and extensive knowledge about all kinds of topics. Over the years, he shared many loving moments, especially with the elder members of our family. He will be remembered by our family members for his $1 million smile and his cool guy air. In his younger life, actually, Casey was referred to as the Asian Fonz and the Japanese James Dean. Maybe you'll see a little of that in the pictures here. He was charming and easily made friends. He never married or had children, but I would argue that he did have babies. Their names are Cameo, Ducati, Mako, Norton, and Harley Davidson. It's true. Every vehicle he put his hands on was handled with detail, precision, pride, and joy. Even when they caused him frustration and lots of four-letter words, for sure, he poured his love and knowledge into every mechanical project. And in my opinion, I think he raised those babies quite well. Casey accomplished more in one lifetime than most people could fit into 10. He embodied the go for broke spirit in his demeanor and accomplishments. He wasn't waiting around for others to make things happen. He made them happen. Together, we developed our family farm into a residential subdivision. In the course of those 5 years, we had made thousands of decisions. Casey was meticulous about every detail. He researched every part of the process and built relationships that have endured today. He was 100% committed to the successful completion of the project, and he valued the sense of pride and a job well done. One example was the mailboxes we installed. He designed them, made them all out of steel, had them powder coated, and he again meticulously placed each mailbox precisely on each lot with 4 big bolts. Does that sound like he's kind of working on a motorcycle maybe? If anyone was going to run into them, they definitely were going to damage their car, not the mailbox. Another important detail was the naming of the development. Choosing Lotus Springs was a very thought out process, the pros and cons of that whole process. But each decision brought joy, fulfillment, and proud accomplishments. My brother was a man of steel, resilient through every adversity. When he was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2018, his first reaction was devastation. Having cancer 3 times myself, I knew exactly how he felt. He faced cancer the Kawano way, with the same go for broke spirit he'd always had. He buckled down and got it done. We became a team of "we've got this," meeting with doctors and attending treatments. Dave and I had Casey for dinner most nights in an effort to beef him up. One endearing name given to him is Slim Pickens. And Casey would smile and laugh. Those nights together gave us a time to hear about the projects he was working on, and he always had stories about one thing or another. This experience made us stronger, resilient, and gave us both a respect for life itself. After his diagnosis, he let me more into his world. In 2021, Dave and I were invited to join him at the Bonneville Flats Speed Week. And it truly was an honor because he'd rather go by himself, because that's where he got into the intricate interviewing the driver, listen about their story, how they built the engine. He didn't need his sister or some other even friend to go along to support him that. He wanted to go do that research himself. But so I felt that Dave and I were really treated very nice to this trip. The knowledge that Casey had of each driver and team was so impressive. It was like having an announcer right next to us giving play-by-play action of the entire event. He was in his element. Just a month ago, he called me up one day and said, "Hey, want to go to Riggins tomorrow to get some fresh fish? Salmon." And I said, "I'll be ready." He picked me up early the next morning, and we spent the day driving up to Riggins, searching for the best fish for sale, reminiscing about trips he had taken there on his bike, and shared more stories. It was again fun to watch and listen to the conversations we had with the Indian fishermen, getting to know what we could in an hour's visit. But of course, Casey already had made friends and was invited to come back. We finished up the day by spending time with Tom Baxter, who actually told him about where to get the fish in the first place. Tom was so kind to clean, fillet, and bag and seal the salmon for us. Again, we enjoyed good conversation, and Casey and I prepared a delightful salmon dinner that night. From the beginning, Casey found an absolute love of all things mechanical, starting with riding tricycles, go-karts, and mini bikes. As a kid, he knew that going fast brought him joy. As an adult, continuing that joy with motorcycles, cars, trucks, and anything mechanical. His whole life was spent building, tinkering, and perfecting the baby he was working on. He never stopped. Casey's true happiness that brought so much joy his entire life was working on the precision and painstaking work year after year after year on these vehicles. But this happiness brought him fun, laughter, camaraderie with his buddies, adventure, stories, and more stories, and lots of smiles. How many of us can say we found this kind of joy from such an early age that would endure his entire lifetime? Life is never long enough. Life is brief, but love is long, and my love for my brother is forever. Thank you, Casey. I want to leave you with this video that's set to the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And the rainbow is a connection that started with our mother when she passed away. She had communicated through these rainbows. First, a double rainbow appeared when we were making arrangements for her funeral. The next step, when we gathered at the house to write thank you cards, out came a rainbow. The following Mother's Day, we were at Russ's house. After dinner, we decided to take a walk, and out came the rainbows. When my brother's brother, Saiko Kazaki, passed away, out came a rainbow. And from that point on, I paid attention when those rainbows came out. I just felt like Mom was saying, everything's okay. The one picture Casey is in, that rainbow happened on Mother's Day, and another time happened when he was diagnosed with the lung cancer. There was a calm that came over me because seeing that double rainbow, she again said, everything's going to be okay. I always feel a sense of calm and comfort when that rainbow appears. So Casey knew that, and we would always share rainbows and text us back and forth when we'd see the rainbows because he knew what that significant was for us. So when he was transitioning over, I played that song for him. And the other thing you'll see on this video is that I want you to notice is how we sent Casey out in style. The funeral home in Salt Lake had a vintage 1963 Cadillac Gold Superior hearse. So for his final ride, he got to be in that. So it was everything just came together so beautiful as he passed on.
It's almost a double now.
Oh, see, it's gonna come off, Robert. You can see, it's gonna happen.
What, a double?
Yeah, look.
Yeah, it's doubling up right now. It's doubling up right now all the way. double now.
Oh, see, it's gonna come off, Robert. You can see, oh, it's gonna happen.
What, a double?
Yeah, look.
Yeah, it's doubling up right now. It's doubling up right now all the way.
I'm Koji, Casey's nephew. Casey's charisma and charm had him in a lot of circles. Look around, you'll see. His network was wide, and his roster of friends was incredibly varied. I'd go to some bike event to meet up with my buddies, and he'd have me feeling like the third wheel in my own friend group. I still think my best friends think of me as Casey's nephew. He could talk to anyone in any situation and have an interesting story or some advice. Whether you were old or young, it didn't matter. His cool transcended space and time. It was infectious. Being in his orbit made you feel cool. He pulled you in and engaged in your interests, or he would pick your brain about a skill you possessed. He was curious, he was driven, and he'd drive you to be your best. Even when he was doing something dorky, it was still cool. One of the funniest memories I have, a few people were here, Abby, Scott, and some other people. We were having a group yard sale at our house, and he rolled up on his bike unannounced, and he showed up looking cool. He had his denim vest on, and in his chest pocket, he had 2 greasy, foot-long pepperoni sticks sticking out of the pocket, like he was the drummer for Slim Jim and the Beef Boys. I don't know exactly. And he began asking us, how business was. It was like watching Bugs Bunny ask, "What's up, Doc?" But yeah, even when he rolled in like the Fonz of meat snacks, he was still the coolest thing you'd ever seen on 2 wheels. I remember him teaching me how to ride a motorcycle for the first time. He took me down to the fairgrounds below his house. I was nervous, obviously, but he sat behind me with me kind of pushed into the tank. He very meticulously explained the full process one time and put his hands over mine and showed me the controls. We rode around in circles a few times with me just laughing and giggling, having the best time of my life. He then hopped off and, to my surprise, told me to ride it back to his house. What I didn't mention is that I was 25 years old at the time. And he had tricked me into following him down in his truck and was planning on stranding me there the whole time. Like it was some kind of initiation. So yeah, a lot of pressure there. My smile turned into panic as he drove away towards Shinden, but he was clear enough with his instructions that even my dumbass could make it up the hill and back to his house without incident. It was this little 1974 KZ 400, so it's a tiny bike, 2 grown men on it. Definitely a funny sight, I'm sure. I could still tell he was a little proud of me. He took the bike after I got back and proceeded to rip a wicked wheelie in his driveway, and then absolutely slammed the crap out of the front end on the way down. He said, "Oh yeah, she's pretty good," as if it had passed some KC test that was undefined. If he showed you tough love, it meant he liked you. Blunt, to the point, cut to the bone advice that only those close to him would get. He knew what you were capable of, even if you didn't know it yourself. He'd press you, he'd razz you, he'd hassle you, until you proved to yourself that you had it all along. On the flip side, watching that same salty, surly man be an absolute sweetie to my daughter was a trip. He was willing to be silly, he got on her level, and he was patient and listened to her. I got a glimpse of how he probably was when I was her age. He was also surprisingly sweet to our little dachshund, Eloise. She was not so sweet. Maybe it was because he smelled like gasoline, or that he'd pop in like Kramer unannounced, but she would lose it every time. He always would catch her and soothe her like some kind of wiener dog whisperer and get her to calm down. They both had a lot of bark for how small they were. They both were secretly sweeties. As I grew up, Casey became my friend. We were always there for each other. He was my mechanic and I became his tech support. Sometimes the scales would be tipped one way or the other. He'd bust his ass helping me fully detail my van, and I'd give him the login to my HBO account. I don't know if that was fair. He'd let me borrow a screwdriver and I'd help him sign up for Medicare. Just simple stuff, It even got to the point where he started whoring me out to Steve Coleus to help him with his cable TV or buy some electronic device. I do think he got the short end of the stick, though, so it's apology time. I caused so many headaches for him, I thought I'd officially apologize for a few. I remember making him go out to Parma in the middle of the night to buy a 1966 G10 van, made him scramble to gather the cash to loan me so I could buy it. It was 3 on the tree, so I needed him to drive it back for me. I say that like I can drive stick normally. I can't. I'm useless. I forgot to bring a gas can or any tools. The van vapor locked a few times on the way back, but resourceful Casey still got it back in one piece, and he was still stoked on the deal for me. Sorry about that one. I borrowed his truck to move some random things and ran his diesel truck out of gas 2 separate times. I made him come bleed the fuel system twice because I forgot what he showed me the first time. I did end up learning a few new curse word combos, though. Double sorry about that one. I made him come kick the tires on so many rigs I never ended up buying, dump runs, oil changes, borrow his truck, borrow his lawnmower, borrow his bikes, borrow his tools. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm sorry I leaned on you so much while I was learning to stand on my own 2 feet. Still learning, still leaning, but a little less thanks to the lessons you taught me throughout my life. Sorry it took so many times for things to stick sometimes. Thank you for helping me in so many ways. He did get me back, though. For all of the favors that he did for me, he made me teach him the following things multiple times. How to Google, bookmark, refresh, restart, reboot, restore, tabs, browser history, incognito mode, minimize, resize, full screen, screenshot, format, FaceTime, open, click, close, clear, connect, long press, download, update, backup, delete, drag, draft, copy, paste, edit, attach, send, install, pair, print, like, unlike, join, follow, share, tag, log in, log out, factory reset. The list goes on. But no matter how much Abby would hear me absolutely losing it trying to explain this stuff to him over the phone, I still loved that he would call for help, and after we both swore at each other for a half an hour, we would get to the fun part about talking about our days and gossiping and sharing a moment. So I was happy that he never remembered all of the things I taught him because it meant I got more calls with him. I'm sincerely going to miss those calls. To a lot of you, Casey was the cool motorhead who had a sort of local celebrity. To me, Casey was a lot of things. A friend, a brother, a teacher, a dad at times. I knew no matter what, I could get valuable advice about anything. I didn't get the chance to learn all the crazy stuff he got into as a kid or as an adult, but I'm hoping a few of you can share some of those stories. Like Kiley was saying, I'm sure not all of them are eulogy appropriate, but pull me aside, I want to hear some more about an absolute legend, my Uncle Casey. Love you, buddy.
We have a very, very large and a very, very close family. My mother was the eldest of 8 siblings, the Okazaki clan. And Casey's mom was the youngest of the clan. Those 8 Nisei produced 24 first cousins, the Okazakis, but we considered many others our cousins as well. Turns out that my father's younger sister, Shig Kuroda, was one of her best friends, and so the 2 Kurodas were considered cousins. And then 2 Okazaki siblings married 2 Matsumura siblings out of 5 of them, and we just added the whole Matsumura clan. So there were 33 Sansei, or the 3rd generation Japanese Americans. And those produced 36 offspring, the Yonsei, who have so far produced 24 Gosei, and we have 1 Rokusei on the way. So we're a very large and a very tight clan. My parents' generation, my grandparents, and my sister and I were incarcerated during World War II because of the war against Japan. And when we left the camps, most of us ended up here in southern Idaho. In the late 40s, however, half of the siblings, plus my grandparents, moved back to the Seattle area, where my grandparents had a truck farm before the war. Because Grandma and Grandpa were in Seattle, that meant that the Oregon and Idaho families would come every summer and come visit. And they usually stayed at Grandma and Grandpa's place up on Beacon Hill. On one of those trips, I was going to show you some pictures. We like to take lots of pictures, frequently lining everybody up, age appropriate, my mom at one end, and so on. And then here, lining up the baby boomer generation. My sister was here, and Casey's near the youngest end. On one of those many summer gatherings, I first met Casey, who was a 1-year-old. He's the one waving in the picture. At some point in time when he was young, Becky and I tried to figure out how old he was. He was probably somewhere between 5 and 7. They were in Seattle visiting, staying at my grandparents', and Casey, being Casey, got bored with the fault of all the family gathering, and he went walkabout. He went down the hill from Beacon Hill, across a major arterial, and ended up in Japantown. It was a good mile away. He wandered in and out of several stores, probably hoping for a treat. He didn't have any money, so he didn't buy anything. And eventually he made it back up to the house. And people were a little disturbed because he had been missing for quite a while. Well, decades later, on a family trip to Seattle, I had Casey in the car, and I was driving up toward Beacon Hill. We were crossing that same 12th Street green metal bridge, and Casey looks around and says, "I remember this bridge." And he proceeds to tell me that story of him going walkabout when he was a young kid. So that was classic Casey. The family continued to get together in Seattle until my grandmother died in 1981. And the siblings, especially the sisters, were very concerned that the family would not have that reason to gather. And that began a tradition starting in 1982 of our family getting together every 2 years. We would meet in various places and have lots of fun. And on one of those, because he was such a biker, Casey drove up in 2004 on a BMW bike and parked it right in front of the venue where we were staying. And probably it was Casey, it sounds like Casey, got my then 89-year-old mother to jump aboard his bike. So she gets on it, and it was a great photo op. So she's sitting there smiling, going, "Hey." And my sister and I looked at each other and said, "This is a perfect picture for the invitation for her 90th birthday." And it became a classic. All kinds of people remember that picture. Well, 10 years later, in 2014, Casey tools up to Becky's at another family reunion, this time in a Harley. And guess what? Once again, now my 99-year-old mother hops aboard the Harley, and she's got a great picture. And that became the invitation for her 100th birthday. And Casey was there, and one of my favorite pictures at this reunion was Casey and Becky kissing my mother, then 100 years old, on either cheek. When my sister succumbed to lung cancer, Casey made the first of many contacts with me. And we discussed his prognosis and the disease and the treatment and so on. And he tackled it with the same kind of verve that you would expect from him. And one of the things that Kiley remembered is that it seemed to cause Casey to reach out to people more. And last year, we were all gathered together for our aunt's 100th birthday and another cousin's celebration of life. And after one of those gatherings, a bunch of us were sitting around talking, and the guys were talking cars, naturally. And so I shared the story of their father, my Uncle Benny, who, when they were visiting in Seattle, came to pick my sister and I up in a pink Cadillac. And Casey and Russ looked at each other and said, I don't remember a pink Cadillac. Trust me, you remember a ride in a pink Cadillac. So it was very fitting that his last ride was, one of his last rides was in that gold Cadillac. But throughout all of our gatherings of our family, one of the things that we really treasure is that we get together in lots of fun and good times and not just sad times. So here's the Casey.
My name's Carson Kawano, and my father, Russ Kawano, is at the end of the table there. And my dad and I are pulling into Casey's house on Mountain View Drive. And Casey is perched on top of his buddy's tailgate with his legs dangling off like a little kid. And he's got this smile, this grin from ear to ear. And in the back of this pickup is an old motorcycle that's accumulated years of dust and dirt. The day in question is around May 10th of 2010, and you see Casey called my dad and he said, hey, there's a pretty cool motorcycle that my buddy has, and I think Carson should check it out. So the thing you all know is if Casey thinks something is pretty cool, it's probably pretty cool. And the thing about this motorcycle, so the motorcycle in question was a 1972 Yamaha R5C 350cc two-stroke. That's a mouthful. And I didn't really recognize it at the time, but this memory was such a core memory for me and really kind of paved the way of my identity. So in the last decade, I've bought, fixed, and sold over 150 motorcycles and scooters. I went back to business school because of this moment. And it's not just this moment, I think, of why it's important to me. Because when I got this motorcycle home, I got it over to my parents' house, and I washed the motorcycle. And it was beautiful. It was black and orange. And what's next? It didn't run, right? So Casey comes to my parents' house, and my dad and Casey drain the gas tank. They take the petcock, pull that apart, take the carburetor out, the jets. We set the timing, and the bike ran great. But it was the memory of Casey and my dad collaboratively working together and doing something for me that was really profound, and it was such a positive memory that's a huge part of my life and definitely something that I want to pass down to my young kids, specifically my young son, Wells Kawano, who's 4 years old. Over the last 30 days, I've had a lot of time to reflect on the profound impact that Casey had on my life, and I know that he had the exact same impact on each and every one of you. Casey was a man full of life and wisdom, and he was never afraid to tell you his opinion about anything and everything, right? It's definitely something that set him apart. Authenticity and generosity, something that is very rare in this world, came naturally to him. Authenticity because the man would shoot you straight. So if he didn't like something or he thought something was wrong, he was not afraid to tell you. He wore his emotions on his sleeve. And generosity, really the reason that we're here today is because the greatest gift that people can give is their time. And Casey always did that. He always gave you his time. All of us here have spent countless hours just shooting the shit with him, or checking in, late night phone calls, wrenching on something in his garage or yours, riding motorcycles. Casey was always there. And he had a way of making time for others, and that was his true gift. So again, I have a 4-year-old son. His name's Wells. And this summer, we have the Olympics on. And I'm in the kitchen making dinner, and my son, he says, which one am I? As these sprinters are running around the track, right? And puzzled, what are you asking? And then I quickly realized that what he's trying to do is he's trying to say, who do I belong with? Who is my team? Who am I rooting for? because in our very DNA, a lot of us want to like blend in and we want to assimilate, right? And the life that Casey led was different. Casey took the road less traveled and he colored outside the lines, and he was someone who didn't conform, and instead he followed his own unique way of living, which I think each and every one of you came to really enjoy and cherish and appreciate. His focus was on friendships, making things better, making things look better, and of course, go faster. So my final thought here is that I like to think that Casey right now is sitting with a much younger version of himself. He's overlooking all of us, and he sees the love that's in the room, and not only that, but the memories that he himself helped create and make. And so as he's taking it all in, he leans over to the younger version of himself, and with a smile, he says, "We did good, kid."
Casey Kawano. To say he was my best friend is an understatement. He was every bit a brother to me as my two actual brothers, who are both here today. This is someone I talk to not just every day of my life, but multiple times a day for 50 years. We met in 7th grade at Fairmont Jr. High School, at the big tree that everybody would gather at. This was our first social club. It was where we learned to swear, smoke, and try to get to the head of the class. And I do not mean scholastically. Of course, Casey and I found each other quickly. It was not long before he became a fixture at our dinner table, as I did at his. The Kawanos lived on Maple Grove, which at this time seemed like the other side of the world. By the time we finished our first year of junior high, we had pretty much decided we were not going to Harvard. We were not criminal, we were crazy. Casey and I are the reason student teachers today try to avoid junior high. Mrs. Burns knew this and made the horrible mistake to move up a grade when we did. One of my earliest memories that we were getting a reputation was the first day of 8th grade. She walked into the room, went to the front of the class to look up and see Casey Kawano, Steve Coleus, and Kurt Knight. She marched out of the classroom, shaking her head, mumbling, "No, no, 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 no." A few minutes later, she returned with the vice principal, who split us all up. Guilty without lifting a pencil. The only thing that kept us out of JD, and I'm not referring to law school, was machines that burned fuel and went fast. And let's get this out of the way. Casey was faster than me on 2 wheels. But in my iron fist Greek household, there was no way I was allowed to buy a motorcycle. Therefore, the only way for me to learn to ride was by mooching from someone else. Well, who really wanted to let me use their motorcycle except Casey? And how did I return the favor of getting access to equipment? By crashing. A lot. Casey was always mad at me for damaging his equipment, and the crashes got worse and more costly as I was determined to go as fast as Casey. And it's not like I had to put up with his anger for a couple of hours. No, it was all year. We had to see each other every day at school or work. After 8th grade, Casey's stepdad, Hal Toma, had a landscape company. We worked all the time, but it was good money at $2.35 an hour, and I mean that. We used to get 2-week paychecks that were over $200, even if I did have to hand over my paycheck to Casey for repairs. I have no idea what we weighed at the time, but it could not have been more than 100 pounds. In our work career, we must have loaded hundreds, if not thousands, of pickup trucks with gravel and topsoil by shovel. But the absolute worst of them, railroad ties. Has anyone ever invented anything heavier for two skinny-ass kids to load and unload than oil-soaked railroad ties? Hal was a good man, and Tak and him were a lovely, hardworking couple. But can you imagine being his parents at this time in his life? Kids are crazy, but this was another level. Casey's mother, Takeco, was beautiful, smart, and a true survivor. She was the glue that would always find a way to hold it together. She knew I was another crazy. But God bless our moms, they never blamed the other kid. They knew we were both guilty. More recently, Casey and I acknowledged that our mothers were bona fide supermoms that always found a way to make it work and to advance the family. With what would seem like pennies today, they ran families, they cooked around the clock, they ran small businesses, and made investments that truly amounted to something today. They both fought as hard as they could to see us grow up to be something. And you can still see Casey's energetic, never quit mom alive and in person sitting right over there. Her name is Becky Kawano. Good luck trying to build something like that today. Drop dead beautiful, #1 cheerleader, excellent student, and a heart of gold no matter what group you were in. And God bless Rusty Kawano. Of course, just a very nice, very considerate young man that cared for everyone, especially his mother. Later in this event, we're going to be presenting him with the Purple Heart for injuries suffered having to follow in the footpath of Casey. As I was thinking through our junior high and high school life, I have to attempt to share with everyone here just how special it was. Every day, every night, filled with adventure. We were truly crazed children coming of age in an era of beer, weed, music, and very fast machinery. We all had a positive attitude and dreamt big. We never quit winning at sports, and I mean all sports, all the way from grade school through high school graduation. We just didn't lose and got good grades, even when the paper was blurry. But only now I finally know what the magic ingredient was. Hair. Very, very long hair. And if we are truly being honest right now, did anybody ever have more beautiful hair than Casey Kawano? A few years ago, I was able to sum it up to my daughter as to why the hair of the 70s can never be duplicated. Because we did not have blow dryers. Which means our nightly ritual before going out was to wash our hair and towel dry it. Hence, magic hair. I don't think I'm embellishing how much we were out and how much we were getting after it. When people showed up, they were excited to see friends, all of them. Not just a small group, everyone. At our school, we were all together. The long hairs, the athletes, the nerds, well, at least a part of the drill team. As one big family that loved each other. But the star was always Casey. How many times I had to hear, "Where is Casey? Is Casey coming? Hey, when is Casey going to get here?" He was our Japanese Elvis. And although he did not do it intentionally, he was a natural celebrity and would not hesitate to come 2 hours late or not even come at all. Hence the nickname, No Show Kawano. Everybody in this room has been a victim, if you know Casey. Sitting there, all fired up, hair towel dried, And bam, you realize, damn it, he's not only late, he's not even coming. But this doesn't mean he was not loyal. He was always there when you needed him. Casey and I never had to invoke the loyalty clause. It was just there. It started in junior high, continued through high school, and unfortunately advanced to some more serious places. I will describe what happened in junior high to keep it light, but it was always the same. Step one, they would separate us. Step two, some authority figure with a fat neck would sit down and say, your buddy said you did it. Your buddy said it was your fault. From a young age, we said, bullshit. No, he didn't. Casey and I never let each other down under duress, and there was real duress to come in the years to come. Finishing college, in a way, is the first real halftime of our lives. Whether you went to college or not, time to grow up, time to get a job, time to find a place to live. God forbid, settle down, right? I tried to make it in Boise with a bunch of crazy plans. I bought the Yankee Dog vending company with borrowed money, and Casey and I would deliver fresh hot dog buns to the carts in a red Di Tomaso Pantera. I can't imagine why this caught the attention of the authorities. Two 21-year-old, long-haired Cocoa Caucasians on Main Street in Boise in a 200-mile-an-hour red Italian delivery car. Not too long thereafter, I don't want to say that I had to leave the state of Idaho and no one drove me to the border, but it was time to go. Come on, Kawano, let's get out of here. He wasn't ready to split, and I said, well, okay, but I didn't mean it. I did not get far before blowing a motor leaving Phoenix for Texas. Now stuck in Phoenix, waiting for the car to get fixed, I talked Casey into coming to Arizona to help me get to Texas. He had a brown 911 and I had a yellow one. Of course, the Arizona mechanic tried to rip me off for additional money, so after lighting it up in Phoenix for about a week, letting our tempers build about how this guy was taking advantage of a couple of innocent farm kids, we decided to pack up and head east, fully prepared to go in his car. But first, we decided to stop by the Porsche shop where my car was parked outside at midnight. Amazing, no one was there. The gate was locked, sort of. We managed our way onto the yard. All good so far. I just happened to have a spare key, so I fired it up. Casey and I like short-term goals. We now set one, to be out of the state of Arizona by dawn. Now, this is not storytelling from a movie, this is Casey. We were hauling the mail, which is Casey's expression for going fast, in the middle of the night at a solid 100 miles an hour, across New Mexico, swapping leads. I looked in my mirror and he was drafting me at no more than a foot off my bumper. I literally could not see the front of his car at 100, only the windshield, and I can still remember seeing his eyes and big smile from the light on his dashboard. We got to Texas and I started my work career. Casey returned to Boise to start his new career studying gaming in Nevada. I don't know exactly how to describe Casey's Nevada education, but it seemed to work because he always had a large stack of $100 bills. Cash. Cash in Casey was like hot dogs and mustard. There may be people with more money, but no one was as good with cash as Casey. Once in a while, he might be low on money, but he was never low on cash. But Casey knew how to work hard. The Kawanos turned the family farm into Lotus Springs and Nampa. The project showed how resourceful he was, and if pushed, how he could accomplish anything. The guy was a quick study. from cars to motorcycles to airplanes to land development to medical reports. It didn't matter. He learned everything. And he knew me stone cold. An example that has history for both of us. I found my way to Southern Cal in search of money and opportunity. It was around the time that Casey wanted to fly to LA with his friend Ron Riker to talk about a business deal. Halfway between my office and the airport is a coffee shop where I spotted the most beautiful French girl I had ever seen. I asked Casey and Ron to meet me there. They got there before me and were seated on the patio out front. After I joined them, it did not take long for me to ask Casey if he had seen the girl inside. Out of the blue, Casey said yes, and then calmly stated he was taking her to dinner that night. Of course, I lost my mind, embarrassed myself, threatened to beat him, and continued to mumble halfway through lunch before he started to laugh at what a fool I was for swallowing his hook. I married that girl in France a year later. We took the long way through Europe to France for the wedding, and of course, Casey was my best man. We will skip the next 25 years that we shared together, but it never changed. It was an endless highlight reel of lifetime experiences. We were not shy to take risks, but we were never fools. We were greedy in our fun and never lost our brotherhood. We are headed to Japan this October. He's busy right now, researching everything.
That later on when I was driving that BMW 2002, everybody I knew was driving something and we were just hauling ass.
I hope you're dancing in the sky. And I hope you're singing in the angels' choir. And I hope them angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. Tell me, what does it look like in heaven? Is it peaceful? Is it free? Like they say? Does the sun rise forever? Have your fears and your pain going away? And I hope you're dancing in the sky. And I hope you're singing in the angels' choir. And I hope them angels know what they have. 'Cause I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived.
You go about 110, 115 along the flats, fast as it'd go.